We just got out of the car, like just now.
We rolled into
Like,
Portland.
oh,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like
so,
walked in. Dave's like, let's unload the car. I'm like, let's just get in and like make sure we can connect to the internet because it's time.
yeah.
Seems pretty critical.
so is it at your friend's place or is it at a, like Airbnb or something?
Airbnb. It's pretty nice too. It's like the whole second floor of a small house, like a little apartment, but the layout is really cool. Yeah, and all the windows are open and it's nice out, and there's like privacy though. There's like no neighbors with windows right next.
And there's a lampshade.
What are you doing?
Nice. The old school lampshade.
Like down light.
Upside down on the ceiling.
Who cares about that? Wait, there it is.
This is what we're working with.
I can't do
Yeah.
it. My proprioception with the is
The
not.
camera.
Yeah, I'm trying to show them the space.
So
Yeah. It's interesting.
That's my tour.
yeah,
My really good tour.
Love it.
Sweet.
we're road brained. So good luck.
Road brained.
Yeah. We were working on, so I was gonna try to get all of the like pages and components and stuff listed out, and we've been on the road, so that's my excuse that I got like 20% of any of that done. So that's
No worries.
That's fine.
Yeah, CJ and I were hoping to squeeze in another call as well, but things have been a little crazy. So we managed to one chat on like Tuesday, I think it was. So
Yeah.
got a little bit like laid out, but I think this week's been pretty intense here as well.
well, fine. I feel less guilty. That's how that
Yep.
works.
Oh, sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking a lot about like sort of, or Kristen and I were talking on the drive over here about sort of like design metaphors around like how the interface is structured and how to think about the blocks and what we're trying to do. So, and particularly, I mean, maybe we can jump into that, or if there's something else, I don't, whatever works. But thinking about like one of the mentalities about like a workspace, and then the app, like being the sort of app layer, and that everything within that is relational. And then some outside layer of the thing that's more like a viewport layer, like a static site or something like this. I don't know. Or, a hybrid or whatever the hell. And like kind of just thinking about what the implications of that model were. And then also we did a little bit of practice, like trying to map navigation and like thinking about how that works in terms of these queries. And like, sort of one of the things we ran into is like people like authors, multiple authors on a post, and then or a single author on a post, or how to think about that kind of thing. And then particularly like they're very clearly a query that is, a specific author, right? But are there not, and that's a profile page, right? That's got like a header and a list of block or a list of posts on it. And then what is the instantiation of, let's say, a multi-author post, and is that a profile too? And then what are these implications? And then, yeah, so.
And then the concept of game profile,
Yeah.
because that also probably have like multi-authors, participants, posts. So like there's similarities in everything. It's pretty fractally. So
Yeah, which has some effect on how the components are structured. I think this is where like how the app, or whatever we're called, however you want to think about this, is structured, and how things relate and all that stuff. So maybe there's some clarification or some stuff we can push into there, if that makes any sense, or if anybody has anything else. I mean, this is sort of what we have open right now, but yeah.
yeah, but I think the intent is to go to a Figma doc with comps on it, right? With some of the thinking, so that we are sort of attaching visual UI, UX with some of the like design thinking, like right next to it. So you can just see all in one, this is what the forward, like the front end might look like or feel like or
Mhm.
look like.
Yeah, moving some of the comps that I have now into a more like organized, something that can be referenced for build. And then, yeah, just the mentality on how we build this stuff, because I don't know from the front end too well, but yeah.
That's
Sure.
where we've been playing. So
At least one of the things that caught my attention was like the more like workspacey thing. Is that something that you're thinking like immediately on? Because like at least for me, like that's kind of how I conceive of it as well. Is like there's kind of this workspace where you're like manipulating blocks, and then where those blocks go is kind of up to the block consumers more than anything else.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're saying as well? I like just trying to digest it.
Yeah, so there's definitely the need to like produce blocks, right? And then and that's a fractal, because if everything's a block in the system, then and then so there's producing them, editing them, and relating them, which
yeah.
are all the sort of.
So to your point, CJ, in the question, I think there's a few like subset views of blocks that are going to be so commonly used that we're going to like make viewport, like built-in viewports for them.
Viewports, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, there's some fundamentals that I think we're going to be playing with, like the profile, the main feed, a game page, like certain things that we think or that we know now that we want to see and navigate to, but eventually there would be others is the idea.
So that move we just made from there is some instantiation or way of thinking about this where so the stratum of the workspace is like modifiable, right? Like, and sort of navigable, which is weird, right? And so how you navigate it creates like the sort of hallways, the path. If you're thinking, I've like kind of got this in a studio mindset or whatever, like, okay, we're conglomerating around this area of games, right? And there is like content that based on metadata sort of nodes itself, right? And then there is a face that you can put on that, like navigability wise or whatever. But it's ultimately like, it's all relatable and stuff. And then there is some instantiation that is only navigable, consumable, that is a representation of the work that is done in this like workspace. And is there a one-to-one relationship to that? Is it like, are you in a workspace that is like, it's like the WYSIWYG thing, right? Like Squarespace editor or whatever. Like you take that thing and you move it around and it writes the code to remember where it is. Like what mental models for the software like interface layer should we use here? And I mean, I don't know how to really make this decision well. Part of it in the past has been based on like what is feasible to do. Like I never built any of those Squarespace interfaces because I saw how it took them like, they had a $10 million budget to build that interface. So,
right.
The cost has come down significantly on that stuff, but you also don't need a crazy high fidelity. You can move it everywhere. Abstractions work perfectly fine. They're actually better for thinking in a lot of cases. So like, this is the sort of stew that I'm playing in here to try and coordinate the best way to build this stuff or think about building this stuff. So any help you give me, great.
Yeah, I think CJ and I were definitely touching on some similar themes. I guess one thing I'm wondering is this kind of implies that we would start out with both a textual view and a more 3D like map view right out of the gate. Is that well, okay, first of all, am I reading that correctly, or are you talking more about just like the overall feel of it and not necessarily like the mixed representation output?
Yeah, I think that more the like sort of
design. This is design, like how
The
it
UI
works.
design, yeah. But particular, yeah.
We don't necessarily need, I wasn't thinking about us needing to have a 3D view at all.
No.
This is just how it works, the design of it, like how it could be navigated. Like I tend to, like what we sort of ran into, I like to be, this is why everyone needs to watch Ralph Breaks the Internet, because this is how I see the internet.
Okay.
So like I'm like a person like walking along the graph nodes and stuff. Like this is, I like go through and I'm like, oh, I'm at a node now, and this is the game node, and it looks like this, and this is how this works. I'm gonna walk over on this path, and it's gonna take me to CJ's profile.
Yep.
But we don't need the graph view 3D view right now. I don't think.
No. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think
so. This is more the informational architecture.
yeah, it's also the ground level. So we're dipping into like subway, not subway map territory, but like what it's like being in the subway and you see a sign over there and you're going to go towards that thing because you know that you need to go to Coney Island. And there's a thing that says go to Coney Island over here. And then when you're there, you work out. There's another ground level like architecture, and if you need to, you can ask somebody how to get somewhere. That's kind of where Kristen and I were playing. And so like I'm on a page and the query is all posts from all people, and that spits out a feed, right? And then with that feed, this is the stuff that I was going to lay out so that I would have this to talk about, and I would just point to it, and you're like, okay, we'll get there. But yeah, and then on that feed, there are controls that let you sift the stuff. I have some of this in Figma already, so.
So, John, what were you and CJ? Loop us back into the 3D versus.
I think, John, can I take this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe this, like, to preface, is like looking forward a little bit more in the sense, like, for the data architecture side, that like we can have this view of composing and building posts, but that's like one view. If you looked at John's notes or had a chance to look at John's notes, he had that kind of map view. So there is this relationship between blocks that go into a post, and then you can kind of explode that more into a map view and then back. And then how do you add, say information to a post, and then how does that get represented in the map view? And at least like how I'm conceiving of this is, again, like this is something that I see is very valuable for us to have in the future, is just like ultimately we have data, and it's however you want to view the data is important, but now how does it like translate to each other? Is there a function defining like some default in that view when a new block is added to it or something like this? So just some of those things we're thinking about.
This is some of the stuff that John and I talked about. I didn't bring that up with Kristen, the big map stuff.
Big map.
I mean, basically.
Big map.
Big map. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so where did you guys land with all that?
It is.
I haven't seen any of it.
I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah.
It's the stuff in Discord, right?
Yeah.
Sure, General. We landed on the fact that this is a very not easy to land on problem.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking, like, maybe, I mean, this is maybe something to like really sort of recognize and keep in mind for now, but like, I don't think it's blocking in the sense that we need to make a decision on it, or even like this might not even need to be the focus of the discussion. I just wanted to make sure that I was getting like the architecture versus like the actual underlying representation.
Architecture. Yep.
And this stuff is all compatible with the schema that we were already at, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems great. I feel like something that might emerge from this next phase of building is like an SDK kind of tool.
Yep.
So as long as the backend is always the same and the schema is always the same, we can like repurpose that layer, try out a bunch of different UI stuff, and
Yeah, I think that.
So actually,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm not sure. So I guess like on the schema, there's one question that John and I ran into. I think it was brought up last time, but I couldn't see like, at least like I can see a short-term technical solution, but a long-term solution seems a little bit more far off to me. Is, say we're building a page and we have all these blocks. without hard coding who the authors are, how do we go and fetch the authors from the blocks directly? Is this a job of the backend to do, or because now this is a piece of metadata embedded in the blocks? We could say, look at the past 100 blocks and give us all the authors, but say there's 100 authors contributing and some of them are very infrequent. How can we display that information on the web page consistently every time? With a database like this would be a little bit more simple to do. You could kind of just query like all the authors. Do we need like some kind of map reduce function here in the same way on our blocks to be able to do that? Like, is that built in as part of our backend API to the block as well? Or is this some like maybe fundamental architectural problem with the block itself to be able to query out, who, give me a set of all the unique authors from all blocks? Like that would be like the fundamental question, I think.
I think there's a long-term approach, which is if it's on the blockchain in IPFS, there's a specific way of doing that. There's a decentralized protocol called the graph, which will index every block, and you can have it parse out everything and have it be very queryable and sortable and filterable. Like it gives you all that for free. In the short term on GitHub, though, that's a different problem, because it either need a database that you're manually updating right now, or some kind of preprocessor, like as posts come in, you're also setting up like an index file or something.
Okay. Well, I guess in the short term for at least like GitHub, in the sense like we can hard code that information. It's very easy for us to do, or even just query all the blocks and then reduce it on JavaScript. And because we shouldn't have enough blocks to really like host the front end yet, I would imagine. Totally. But it's really good to know about dgraph. I did see you mention it last time, but I wasn't quite sure exactly how it worked. I kind of looked quickly at the documentation, but it didn't dive too deeply into how it's working itself. So I think I was going to say, does it depend on our architecture, or is our block architecture good enough to fit with how they're going to expose?
We're not going to have to rewrite any kind of schema or anything. Basically, you define everything within the graph, and it'll do whatever you need it to.
I see.
Essentially, like you're writing a little bit of JavaScript that's like very strongly typed, but it's listing for new blocks being added to the blockchain. If it sees that one of those things triggers like an event that you're listening for, it'll then run that JavaScript function. So that function can just be like, create new post, associate it with this author, do whatever kind of databasey kind of stuff you want to do. But it's still decentralized. It's just like another indexing layer on top of the blockchain.
Okay, so it's like all the information is there, but now you're just writing a little function to actually describe the relationship.
Exactly.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that feels pretty good. At least for answering questions like, give me all authors, give me posts from this squad perhaps, or this like group, especially. But before we get into like trying to find other squads from inside out stuff and discovery, like at the very least, that this seems like one way to index the data as it's going out, until I guess like more outside in discovery is possible.
Okay.
Great.
Shahruz, can you unpack the like SDK mentality a little for me? Like,
sure. I guess just in the pattern of like making reusable code so that things can be reused and it's not redundant work. There's going to be functions that need to get written on the front end that deal with like the basic block stuff that talks to the APIs that are in the back end. Those things should be pretty primitive and reusable, so that if there's a new context or a new front end or a new approach or any kind of different use for it, we should just be able to pull those back in and reuse those same functions without redefining the underlying communication there, because it's basically just about communicating the schema and the protocol that's already that's already been designed.
So this would be something like a Web3 JS equivalent, or like some library essentially that we say, okay, this is a library you can just import into your JavaScript project, and now you have basically all the tools at your disposal.
Yeah, I mean, it can start off as just like one file within the main project, but like As soon as you want to reuse it elsewhere, you could just export it as a package and publish it publicly or privately.
Okay,
Hmm.
interesting.
And then, I mean, like that becomes a useful tool later on too, if you're trying to really expand, because then other people can build software on top of it too.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm architecturally it's fun because I'm getting to feel into how you like package this stuff. Yeah, I still don't feel how the like particular front ends tie onto this, but or like the instantiation of the UI or whatever. It'll be fun to see that click in. So cool. Yeah, I mean. I don't know on this. So
I'm just looking for.
So one thing that I was thinking about yesterday was, can we turn the building of, well, I guess, well, it came from like two questions. What exactly is our like MVP for like getting blocks out there?
Yeah.
And how can we turn that into a game? Like, how can we turn building the thing into a game?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is a good question.
Good constraint. Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it should at least set a bounding box. Because I think like we a lot of times like look ahead and like all the things that we potentially can do.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, there's a lot that can be done. So it's how do we like at least get this first framing box to be like, okay, here's where we need to start building out new corners of this box or expanding the box or rethinking the box. But at least putting those constraints on ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, asking it as like, how do you build it into a game, I think is very, very, very relevant. That's great.
Yeah, what are you doing right now? Yeah, so, sorry, I get like distracted. Kristen was moving around. Yeah, I mean, so the premise here is that the constraint is basically like we want to have something that like gets us posting together, right, or something like this.
Not posting together.
Well, to posting is the end result of having this thing working.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Posting
So,
in
using
our
our software.
system. Yeah.
So that I'm going to that is the goal state of this. And then if we can design a goal state that is enjoyable for us to build software towards,
Yes.
like it's just let's go to the other side of that river. Well, we need to build a bridge. Well, fuck. All right, where are we? What do we have? Like, how do we get to the other side of the river kind of thing? So that's one way of thinking about it. I don't know if there's a better way. So
love it.
What kinds of things do we want to try and post? I mean, before we had sort of everything, or we had something that was like, let's pick a thing and analyze it, or, is this what's a kind of engine for this thing? I don't know, anything that pops up would be helpful here because
we talked a little bit about this, like just the basic media files, like being able to post text, audio, video, image, right? Wasn't that like fundamental?
Yeah, that is the basic function. What is the game? What is the content of those kinds of things that might be nice to post? Or am I
don't think that matters.
So
the content I don't think matters, because this is more a build game than a output game, right? I don't know. That's how
I feel like this is kind of maybe the more like overall meta game. Like this is maybe just concretizing like what we're overall doing as a group is this meta game of building this thing, because that's what we have been doing, but it's been like very like discussion, and we've had these like offshoot games in terms of like, okay, like figuring out and like creating that space.
Okay, so Yeah, we've got the fractal of game. Game as definition
Yes.
here is sliding from me.
Yeah,
Like,
game is constraint. Yeah, so what are the constraints? And so that's why I was putting constraints on, like we know well, you put the main one out. We know we've achieved it if we can post together using our own software.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I said, and then you're like, what does it mean to post? And I'm like, just these like media types. Like,
okay.
Yeah, I guess I want to expand the media types with, or proposing to expand with somewhat of like a code contribution media type that maybe not like always displayed, but something resembling a patch or a PR or even just like a proposed set of changes, maybe that like then it like becomes a piece of work that, well, it feels at least like one more ingredient for this metagame. Some way of in the same channel as like sending content, you also need to send proposals for modifications of the substrate of the content.
almost,
Mm-hmm.
almost not that formal though, maybe.
I didn't hear the
Yeah.
first part of what you said, Kristen.
It's like checking in code almost, like
Yeah.
like on GitHub or something, but it's less formalized. Like it's less of a, like, it's more, it feels like everything we're doing is proposed in a way. Here's like potential future
Exactly.
that could exist, and people are like, ah, yes, that looks good. Let's see if we can. No, that doesn't feel good anymore. Let's go over to CJ's now because he proposed something. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
We
You can
went.
just post snippets.
We're a little high-minded right now. We've been listening to philosophy and like talking about the difference between reality and what was the other, like, to juxtapose against?
I don't remember that specific one, but
Yeah, like I guess reality versus what you're proposing, projecting. Like, so there's this weird, and then
oh sure.
reality is co-created, is like sort of like the metaphor. I don't know, that's not even a metaphor, I don't know what that is, but it's kind of what we're working towards, where people are throwing stuff out and then agreeing. But there's a specific type of thing.
Certain features.
There's a specific thing you can throw out that's like to build, basically, or a building.
Yeah. So the suggestion of so can you explain the type that you're talking about? Like I'm having trouble picturing it, I guess. Like, so it's, is it a post type? Is that the way to think about it? Like,
Yeah. And it could be as small as one block. It could be multiple
I
blocks.
think so.
Yeah.
Is it like a text block with
Yeah,
some code
that's kind of
highlighting?
where I'm feeling it start. I think the initial one. I don't know if my internet's doing.
yeah.
Cutting out a little bit.
Can you all still hear me?
Yep. Oh.
No doubt.
Okay. Rejoin my
Rejoin
phone.
my phone.
Yeah, kind of what I mean.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what is the functionality that we need this thing to have? Like, what are we going to be doing with it? Or is it just a post type that someone needs to, was it in the context? Like, this is like an extra piece of metadata of like,
Yeah.
this is a building
I'm
thing.
trying to understand the implications of this more than the specific technical implementation, because that's
I think it's a build style, right? Like, how do we?
So
Yeah.
how does that influence the build style? When do you put one of these, like how
Yeah.
how should I think about like the this type of information being in the system? Like how would I interact with it? You know, this kind of thing is where I'm.
Yep.
And what does that mean? Like, so is it a decision-making apparatus? Is it actionable in some way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
It's invitational, I suspect, more than anything else.
We could start by kind of simulating it on GitHub within that blocks repo.
Yeah.
So just start posting blocks, and then if you have a response to somebody else's like snippet or post, you can reference that using the style that we already have. Like,
yeah,
I think simulating it, but then just getting started on like code and code concepts and starting to like really write that out and get more specific with it. I think at that point it's easier to start just like, all right, let's pull that into the main site repo, that snippet that CJ just submitted, because it checks out and like it does all the things that you know, we talked about doing so far.
Okay.
I think it might be a way to like take steps to having, you know, that all exist on the website, and then we might learn some stuff in the meantime of like, oh, it'd be really convenient if I could just do this instead of this janky way on GitHub.
Yeah, no, that makes, okay, that makes total sense. Yep, I'm just, yeah,
Bootstrap it using GitHub.
okay.
I think that's what that was my take of what John was suggesting was, but
Yeah,
might be rough.
yeah. We still have John.
Yeah, sorry, sort of popping in and out here. 27% packet loss, Jesus. Okay,
Yikes.
basically, Shahruz, I think, yes, like GitHub would be a really nice, like, sort of in-between layer for this. But Dave, to answer your earlier question, I think it might start to look like a series of blocks at some point. So the initial one might be kind of a proposal text, you know, here's a picture I'm painting. The next one might be some sort of discussion step where people reply to it, make suggestions, and maybe say, here's how it relates to my own proposal, and here's how we can maybe combine the two. And then the future block text might start resembling more like actual patches. So this would go a little lower in the code level. Maybe it's links to PRs for now, but more less out of please approve this and merge this for me, and more out of a here is my like expected technical change, and here's how it affects things, and what do you think about that?
Okay.
So I'm kind of feeling like a sequence of blocks here more than one particular type. And it's sort of the way they're linked.
Okay.
That makes sense. There feels like there's some like governance type stuff that could be like small scale governance, like
So this
on voting, like there's an interactivity to it somehow to facilitate the build, which we can let them merge through using GitHub to sort of bootstrap, see like what comes up, what do we want in it. Yeah, feel into that.
And GitHub has a lot of nice tools for this. I mean, they have comments, they have mentions, they have, you know, even emoji reactions on specific comments. Like that is what GitHub is meant to do. I guess at a low level, we're just, for now, we're just kind of like, well, imagine that this was our interface. We could just apply some lightweight norms on top of that and call it a day.
Yeah, this pattern of communication, like, this is helpful because I'm still stuck in a lot of like, make a thing that is good for posting stuff to the internet for other people to see, right? That's a mentality, a pattern language. And then this one is more, it's more sharing works in progress as a means to move forward like a project. So it's more collaborative in its communication style, I guess. There's a necessity for like clear communication, like because it is interactive in a different way, right? You're not one way like broadcasting or whatever. So yeah.
To me, this feels a little, at least like I don't know too much about the process of like the Bitcoin improvement proposals or like the Ethereum improvement proposals or protocols. I don't know exactly what it stands for, but it's the EIPs, the BIPs, the CIPs. This is like almost a similar thing as like, this is like an improvement to our thing in some way. And it is like this, like, it's a proposal and then the proposal kind of builds. And how I'm like imagining it, John, is like you start, like you said, in this like more text form, and then slowly you can see how this moves directly to code and kind of be able to track up and down the thing exactly how that code arose and came to be.
Yep. And all the people associated with it and all the decisions and extra metadata, it all kind of just flows in together.
Okay, so these things are like seeds.
It's like capturing.
They grow. And as they grow, they have like sort of, they complexify, which requires like a more complex user interface to deal with the complexity of information, right? So yeah, okay. How that stuff gets like, tracing the pattern of this, we'll just do it and then we need a piece of this thing there. Knowing that that is the movement in the interface helps me, because, you know, who knows how many blocks of the thing will be on this page. So just keep it loose, and like we can just pile stuff into these views as we go. And the bigger the mess, it's fine. I just won't try to keep it OCD'd because it's pointless. I mean, I can turn that off. Okay, cool. Yeah, so the first, I mean, we still have that's a direction that makes sense. So the game is to be able to communicate like through this thing in the style that we've been making decisions so far, which is sort of proposal and then improvise and like agree to build the thing that feels the most right. However, we've decided to do this through just sort of perspective sharing, whatever, right? Whatever we're doing. Okay. And then trying to get that into software. Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, okay. And then yeah, so curious how this changes, or if it changes at all. Like
Yeah, how do you make this into a game? Like how do you make working a game?
Yeah.
It's a very good question.
Well, I had like kind of one thought on that, and it was kind of tied to how do you distribute work, is what are the pieces that sound most interesting to you? Because there's a lot of pieces of this that I'm like, that would be fun to build. You know, it's like, I'd love to build that, because once that thing is running, like I'm like, oh, I have this other thing that I can attach to that thing, and then like it starts building itself, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So kind of a buffet style. Choose what, you know, seems most interesting, and sort of nurture that to fruition.
At least that's one. Yeah, that's one potential avenue.
No, I love that a lot. I think that's more or less mirroring, you know, the style we've been sort of going at it in as well. I kind of feel, Kristen, like each sort of instantiation of this proposal, communicate, build, like release cycle is a game in and of itself. But then there could be games right before and right after it that are like choose, or like maybe a session of everybody propose something. So even if you yourself can't like implement the whole technical stack, I think, you know, there may be a stage where everybody is making proposals, and then as those proposals are made, then we can kind of like go in, see what you know, technical parts anybody can take, and how feasible things are, but more in the sense that like that like focus flare cycle, where we just generate a lot of ideas, send them around, look at them, and then like not eliminate. I think there should always be this philosophy of like, this is something for later, just you know, not for now, not unless like, oh no, this is like never going to be merged. You know, none of that like terrifying like open source philosophy, which is like, no, get out here. It's more like we're looking for the thing that has the most alignment and the most the highest potential of like existing right now, given our current like resources and skill sets and availability.
Yes.
Or fun. I mean, that might be the play part of it too. Like, fuck it, let like the next piece of work, we need like a ridiculous thing to build right now. So you know, or we need a fundamental piece of this thing because we need stability right now to know that there is a there. So let's get something encoded so that we can point to it and be like, we are doing something. Like, okay, no, it's a good, it makes sense. Okay.
I think one of the things that you said there, John, also ties back to what Dave was saying about seeds. Like, to me, it's like, it's again, just like, oh yeah, like the idea is out there, and now it's like time for that seed to start popping out, and and then that
the seasons.
The seasons, yeah.
That's exactly what those like EIP, BIP things are too. Like some of them take forever to get implemented.
Yeah,
Just because like the attention's not there. But then the ones that people are excited about or that may be more impactful, just like energy gets focused and then those things get done quicker.
got it. That makes sense. I mean, you're sort of tending these things, and some ideas will pop out fully formed and right at the right time, and other ones are just like, it's clearly going to show up at some point somewhere. Best you can do is like get it encoded, and then like, you know, if it's something that is fun to work on, like you can sort of, without like nursing the thing too much. I'm curious how all that works in the environment.
It's a cool way of putting short-term work and all the communication and thinking and development that goes around that, and long-term work into the same structure right next to each other. Kind of works.
Yeah. Because you're not explicitly trying to build out a roadmap. It's more like just doing some sort of radar or sonar, where you're just like, all right, what are the things right in front of us, and what's the way we want, and a compass, and that's about it.
That's amazing.
And sort of let it lead the way.
That's so cool. It's like, I don't know. When you said roadmap, it just like all of a sudden just like blew my mind. It's like, it is like so ever evolving that it's like just growing and flowering like as you move through time. It's just awesome.
Yeah, roadmap kind of scared me, but this feels a lot more like,
well, because you don't know how many, like if your roadmap is, this is how we're going to get from point A to point B, and you're like, yeah, but we only know how to get from like just the first like few steps towards point B before we're not sure. So it's more obvious.
Yeah, and it even implies that we even know where we are.
Yeah.
Which is not always the case.
It's fine. It works the same way that the queries do. Just pick a place and start moving. And like you get better or worse like picks based on the more in tune you are with the environment, which operating within the environment brings you into attunement with it, which means that your picks get better. And then so we are trying to produce like a participatory system. Like
it's like participatory cartography.
Like you're mapping by moving, by failing interestingly. This is the play part, right? Like you can't fuck it up. Just pick something and start building it, right? But coordinating that play, like I'm still, so that like, so we're talking about that. That's the proposals give you this kind of thing, right? Like I propose that we kind of build in this direction. And then, Kristen was talking about this earlier while we were driving. She's just like, best view that you've got from the ground right now, just barf that up. And then it's something you responded to, right? And if it is like wildly off, then you'll at least know that. So, I'm trying to figure out like for the design work that I do, like how to scope that kind of thing to throw it over, right? It's interesting. Like, how that comes up, like, cause it makes sense if we're in code together. Like, I'll just be like, here's a thing and it's on the page and you can, and if so.
He's used to doing a lot. So like we were talking about this earlier, client work where he thinks through the whole, like, here's what I can propose for the client, like sort of thought out the thing, soup to nuts. And I'm like, no, you just have to throw out what it feels like the next best thing. So you're kind of like just scaling back.
Oh yeah, significantly. Like to the thing that's actually useful right now.
Which makes it more sustainable over the long term. So this is
it
like,
makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out how to, I've conditioned doing it this other stupid way for a long time. So
well, what's exciting is that we had talked about working this way previously, and then we just somehow recreated the old way of working with this faulty mindset that we were doing something different, and then we burnt out, which was the whole thing we were trying to avoid. So,
all for not burning out. Definitely.
Yep, same.
Do that again.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things with the game, like the small proposals, like small iterative proposals. So you could do quick sync sessions to vote on something, but you can also do this asynchronously, probably with like a pretty lightweight protocol in Discord for like how we vote on things.
Yep.
Yeah, so we can sort of outline that now, I think, and maybe make our first decision synchronously while we're together.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think we just did.
I was going to say, is this a proposal that we just did as well? Is this the first proposal?
Fucking
Yeah.
easy.
It's like the bootstrap proposal.
Just got to figure out how to log it now.
Yeah.
Well,
Make it
Yeah.
official.
oh, we're gonna get better someday at doing like the time stamping things.
Well, we'll have a system that timestamps it for us.
Yeah, I actually mentioned to John, like at some point I'm going to build one of these things. I like mock outlined an app to do this.
So the next time, remind me, and I'll try, or
Yeah.
I'll do this in the in-between. I'll look into using Grain just as like a thing to prototype using.
Yeah.
Because you
Mhm.
can't real time have the app open and make.
Yeah, if we could get that working.
Because I think you mentioned this, that you've used this, maybe. No?
Grain? I don't think I've heard of it.
Never mind.
Yeah, Daniel was using it for
Okay.
everything. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, because you can imagine like if this works just down the road, that there's software where you can timestamp something with proposal. It's yeah, I mean,
Totally.
it's just simple
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah.
Like this is not like rocket science.
Okay, so the strategy, let me,
I just like how does this stuff not exist? I don't know.
I mean, it
That's
does
what I'm wondering too.
all, it's just not connected to each other.
Yeah.
But it's
Yes.
like arbitrary system that floats on top of the actual work. Like you have to be like, let's go over into this system over here and mark down that we made a decision and then come back into the actual world, like where you're doing anything. So
Yeah.
Removed.
building this in at the base layer as a, I mean, if it works to do this, it'll work to do any kinds of things. So so
We're going to the moon.
the stratum of this thing, the medium that we're operating in is yeah, I'm just trying to so you've got proposals, you toss them out, you're like, I think we should go here. Here's some reasons why, here's some discussions around the thing, here's a movement forward, and then you can reference that. You probably name them, they name themselves somehow. Okay, so it's like the post interface like sort of builds on itself. Yeah, there's like I'm getting closer to this thing. I don't know what it looks like yet, but yeah. So the first instantiation of this is you still just need to get the little blocks into the page to create the posts. Yeah, then like there's something special that like the post pages need, or should we just find that out? Like to make them, they're just stacked blocks, I guess. Then we just put the content in there. So we keep it all really generic.
This would be a proposal that we explore this.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, where are we with back end to front end? Like, where does it make sense to even start right now?
No.
Like, which world to like, I'm trying to scope like where we propose to work in.
Because last time we agreed on pages and components, which I'm still wrestling with.
I mean, I think we could do that stuff in parallel.
Yeah.
But yeah. I have an empty repo up that's just like a scaffolding for a Next.js app with no functionality or pages yet, but it's there to start building on top of at least.
Cool.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I have is like, how do we want to coordinate building, or is it just like free for all?
Maybe that's through the proposal stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then does this come back to like, how do we do these proposals in a way? Like how does this work in Discord?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we want to prototype the proposal process through Discord and then
yeah.
The cat.
Is that your cat?
Oh,
The cat.
The upside down question mark seems so tricky to get to as well.
That's
No,
impressive.
yeah.
I thought it was a
Yeah.
coding issue at first.
Good point in the talk too. Question mark,
Yes.
question mark,
I
question
mean,
mark.
it's cat proposal.
I have no idea.
Mhm. Well, so I can feel the constraint coming in here. Like, we are trying to communicate like a proposal pipeline, right? That isn't like insufferable.
Mhm.
It has to be enjoyable so that
Yeah.
like it moves things along at a cadence. Like, so for me, like, why would I want to write in this thing at all, right? Like, it's got to, you know, so like sort of practicing within, I guess, Discord, and then sort of being like, all right, so this pattern worked. Like, how can we?
So
Is that
the question now, I think this might be another proposal, that
a million of them?
we use Discord to, like, for each of us to highlight what we think would be like the top 2 things to move forward with, something
Mhm.
like that.
Mhm.
So giving people space and time to think through what's the next
Okay.
best thing, and then everyone comes
Yeah.
forward to do that, and then we could sort of rally around what people come up with instead of doing it on the spot, because
Yeah,
sometimes this works though on the spot, because
Sure.
everyone's like,
you're warmed
we've
up.
been thinking about this, we've been doing this, and boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, there's just this meta game logic layer that we need. So yeah, in that case, it's there's like a deliverable on next steps or whatever, however presented. Like, yeah, so is there like a coordinated form here, or like presentation style? We just bring what makes sense within,
I
like,
think
within reason.
Well, first, does it make sense? Is it like the top 2 like tasks? Like what's the top
Do you have
3?
a time constraint on that? Like top 2 tasks that we could accomplish within a
Yep,
certain amount of
Mhm.
time?
good
Yeah.
constraint. I think so. What timeline are we working on?
Say week to 2 weeks is kind of where I'd want to shoot, just to keep the feedback loop pretty tight, but enough time for like a couple nice coding sessions synchronously.
1 to 2 week build cycle, sure. We're not constraining it front end to back end though. It's just everyone's doing their own thing for this one, which, yeah, there'll be a spread on it. And we're agreeing too that we're not just picking one thing. Like, so this isn't like a super, like, the outcome of this might be that we pick the top 3 things that
Mhm.
3 people came.
All kind of,
Yeah.
either things that actually build on top of each other and connect, or are disparate things. I think like either, I
Yep.
think either case makes sense.
And then are we blackboxing it, or do we just use one of our top 2 things to point at somebody else's if we see something that we're like, that's
Yeah.
what I think is a good idea.
I don't think this one needs to be black box, but I don't know.
Same, I think more open makes sense, but Shahruz, I think maybe there's also like 2 components in there. There's proposals versus like votes, and
True.
maybe not votes, but like likes or something that, allows sort of both channels of communication to happen.
Makes sense.
All right, 2 things, 1 to 2 week build cycle, not black box.
So I guess like the build cycle thing is throwing me off a little bit. Is this like constrained to building? Is this like anything within the scope of like
Yeah.
topics of things we talk about, or is it like constrained to software?
Software, I think.
Software.
Right?
I mean,
Okay.
what
I
are the
needed that
things we're talking about that
clarification.
are not software? Because I feel like everything boils down to software here.
Never know. It's good to have the simple stuff explained.
It's true.
Yeah, I think Well, the way I'm thinking about it is like the thing that can get on the page the fastest to get us doing this thing.
Okay.
And I'm curious
Yeah,
to see
MVP
what
kind
that
of.
looks like for each of you.
Yeah.
Because watching you work, watching everybody work that problem will help me understand how you work that problem.
Yeah.
Which means that I can then respond in kind to give you like artifacts that make sense from my end to move the thing forward, because that's the thing I'm having the hardest time with. Because yeah, like I like to respond in kind to what helps everybody build. So like if there's like a graphic style, or if there's like an interface piece that like needs to be expressed, I'm like, oh, I can give you that. Like that, here, this will help you the metaphors, whatever the hell it is. So yeah, anyways, that's what I'm working with.
So that it's like kind of another constraint is like try to come up with the top two things that could be done in 1 to 2 weeks that get us to dog fooding quicker.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's the ultimate constraint here. Like,
yeah. This might be kind of a specific, I guess, like in terms of this game, this is kind of like the flags towards which we want to go, right? Like this is the direction. And I guess the 1 to 2 week cycle is like the thing that tells us how far out towards that direction that we want to go.
okay.
But everybody's like proposing different routes to get there, and everybody's proposing like building different vehicles to get there.
Yeah, the dog fooding ASAP is the goal state, and we're all throwing cats into the ring for how to get there the easiest in software.
Yep.
Yeah,
So this is
just quickly, I wrote down with the MVP mentality, like the simplest, most fundamental, but that might have, are we still like operating kind of in that space?
I think that
sounds right to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
MVP with the premise
That captures it for me.
Yeah, like it's with the style that we're playing in, which is that like, let's keep this fun. Like always checking in with that, because like if the work is enjoyable to do, that like, because you can get into death marches with MVPs pretty easily, because you need to express the thing so that value is accrued or whatever the hell. So
Yeah, I
like
think
making sure that like we're, I don't know. That's mostly for me saying that, but
yeah. Well, MVP is sort of like a keep it scaled back. Don't get fancy.
Yeah. It's gonna be janky, but it's gotta make us smile. And it's gotta have a URL.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Those are great constraints. Has URL, makes us smile. Also janky. Love all those things.
Yes. So on the sort of dog fooding track, this is where my like trepidation around Discord comes in, which, for now it's like kind of we moved from Telegram because Telegram was in some sense like too constraining. So Discord has a lot of things that Telegram didn't, channels, mentions, all voice chats, like it's more of this stuff. I guess, do we want to think about like doing certain things in Discord with the idea of eventually not doing them? And I understand that is like more or less the whole reason we're using Discord is so we can stop using it. But like CJ and I threw around this idea of a channel, which we already from ground zero sort of mark as something to be eventually public. So that like the mindset that we go into writing into that channel is with the mindset that these are all eventually going to be created as blocks and going to be findable, addressable by everybody. So if there's anything that we like, lightweight norms around channels that we want to add, I guess the earlier we do that, the easier it's going to be to sort of get into that mindset. Because right now I think it is a blank slate.
So,
and that's great.
We could do the voting, like whatever this proposal protocol thing is that we're talking about. There could be a channel for this that we want to get out of Discord as soon as possible. If we can like sort of use that as the prototyping a Discord channel.
Yeah.
That could be the first one that we have with that sort of mentality. And then we can watch how we use it so we can sort of encode that for later.
So John, are you also suggesting that that then becomes like a posting interface on top of or alongside GitHub, or as a replacement, or?
I'm not sure, because it sounds like for this part, we're going to be posting on both GitHub and Discord for the more like synchronous chats. Eventually, both of those things will be like through this native block interface. But until then, I guess the idea is just to do it in a way that like will be able to translate over and maybe even migrate like past content over. Or is keeping it only to GitHub like worth considering as well? Maybe it is. I'm not sure.
I mean, Discord's definitely a lot more fluid, which it has its upsides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fluidity of Discord can be watered down so that you can like play act what it would be like when we build it. Whereas like GitHub may be a bit opinionated, I don't, like, or slower or good for something else. I don't know.
Well, GitHub makes sense for the code one.
Sure,
so like talking
yeah.
about like play acting or whatever it is, prototyping, using GitHub for the block type or post type that has to do with code changes or building changes. That makes sense as like a place to put it. But the rest of the stuff, because like the proposal voting thing is more governance focused, so it's more communication. So I would take it out of GitHub, which is like a code communicator, and I'd put it in a social communicator tool instead.
Yeah, and so that way GitHub, I guess, only does what it's really good for, which is like proposing a like technical set of changes and the life cycle associated with that. But the upstream stuff happens in Discord, where it's just more open and like there's emojis, there's replies, there's messages, and everything else is just however we want to structure that.
Yeah, like, I mean, it can be things like, I propose we do a goofy project because everybody seems like they need one versus, I mean, I don't know where it goes. The issues handles that. I don't know if that's an issue. Maybe it's an issue.
That's true. Even the naming is like issues. It's like, well, not everything is an issue.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, what we're trying to do is like create a sort of metaphorical, like sandbox, and like adhering to the metaphor and testing it out, right? And then if we encode enough behavior within the metaphor that it feels like, okay, this is natural, like the interface will just design itself, because we need this here and you feel this, we need a responsive like field here, whatever.
I see.
Yeah, so the more I can see everybody doing this and the more I can participate in it, the easier it is for me to like draw out an interface.
I see. So it's like having some initial thing basically helps you like really play act it and be like, oh, it just makes sense like that, and just like feel into that thing.
Yeah, like if there's stuff on stage, I can respond to it, right? This is just a style I like designing. I mean, there are people for whom they do it differently, but this helps me. Like,
that makes sense.
There's a thing, and that thing is an important thing, and like here's our response to that. And if we want to interact with that thing, then here are like 5 different ways that we could do it, and each has like a different sort of flavor to it. And we can pick the one that makes the most sense to keep the scene moving. We'll continue with this metaphor, but yeah.
That makes sense.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Closing Telegram, is that, or not closing it, but just not using it anymore?
Yeah, I think new content to Discord until we can migrate Telegram content over, and then we close Telegram.
Okay.
Yep.
So we just open another Telegram.
Say we rebuild Telegram.
It is interesting. It may be worth looking into Telegram's building practices, because they are doing things a little non-standard. It's Pavel Durov basically just travels the world with like 15 developers, and they aren't based in any one country. They're not based in any one jurisdiction. They're funded by like the Iron Foundation or whatever. Like there's just I think a much different like set of constraints they're working with that most other chat apps that are like backed by infinite money printers are. And you know, I think the product kind of reflects that as well. So it may be an interesting little research study at some point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious too, if anybody comes up with anything that like looks like a good background on this kind of thing around Ethereum. I'd love to read it, watch it, whatever.
Same.
I know there's a book, but I don't know how much I have it bookmarked somewhere.
What kind of background do you mean? Like I at like what level is what I think is really where that question is stemming.
This social coordination stuff. And I don't know that there's anything that specifically talks to that, or if it's just like a narrative about like early days or like, yeah, I'm sure you could go rebuild this from like looking at all the like message board. Somebody has to have done a little work on that, hopefully.
I think there were a couple books that came out.
I think there's
last year that were good for that, but I never read them. I don't remember what they're called.
And in the same
I think there's like several more being written as it goes on. So, but yeah, I would be very curious to, I guess, not as like low level technical stuff, but just what were the like early snafus and like social mishaps and just like how did they get resolved and what was the situation like?
Well, it's still like unclear to me, at least like in terms of how they're coordinating. It seems like very disparate. Like looking through, I was like, how are these people communicating and like proposing things? Like it doesn't make, I can't wrap my head around it. Like there's not an entry point that I've like easily found. Like it looks like there's many. It's like there could be Discord or there could be like a forum, but like how are all these things combining and talking to each other to make one cohesive like improvement to the code is not clear to me.
That's one of the criticisms that I read sometimes is that it's too centralized around Vitalik right now. Or like he has to go around with like bodyguards because if anything were to happen to him, like the entire value of Ethereum would plummet. And obviously they would suck to be in that position. But whereas Bitcoin doesn't have that problem because nobody knows who Satoshi is, and that was by design. So like there's some interesting trade-offs there.
I mean, I think that we are trying to build like not a consensus system, but an orientation system that is effectively endless. And this is where like, so that actually points to anytime I'm stressed about like having to come up with an answer that moves us forward, right? Like that is a very heady mentality, like a leadership technique that doesn't work here, which is a good sign. Like if we are doing something for like constantly in this conversation, I'm like, I don't know what the hell we're doing. And then like 2 seconds later, we have a little bit of an answer on what we're doing. So like it is,
we're figuring it out.
Well, yeah,
that's what we're doing.
The style of decision-making is like sort of blundering forward together. And there isn't anybody we can point to who would have a specific answer to this. So I think that
the group is the answer. The group interactions are the answer. That's where it's fun.
So Vitalik had an answer a lot of the time because he's got the pattern of this thing, but that's a liability.
I feel like we're trying to put guardrails onto a pattern that exists in the world for a way of relating so that other people can interface with this pattern more easily. It's eventually should be teachable. Like Dave and I had talked about this, like how to teach other people how to use this product. It also includes how to think this way. It's not necessarily a product.
Well, using it with the grain of how it works will teach you how to use it. Like, use these in the same way that like, likes and stuff are in Instagram are forcing you into a game style, right? The methodology of doing this way. And it sort of, it does kneecap a little bit of like individualistic heroism. Like if the system probably won't respond super well to rabbit holing. Like somebody goes off and builds the fucking fanciest shit and brings it back. it's too hard to on-ramp everybody to that. So you are by nature having to scale it to smallest effective, like it's blocks again, right? You're trying to make a block that works with the other blocks. Yeah, okay. So I'm just sort of saying this out loud for my own edification.
Part of building that like core protocol though means that at some point anybody could go and take like the pieces that are already there and do like their genius kind of like execution on some idea.
Totally.
But it should all kind of reuse this public infrastructure that's established.
Yes.
Yeah, it's selecting for a collaborative style that, like, I was talking about this before, like when you're working in things that are complex and nuanced and haven't been done before, they're a combination of areas. Like the only way you can throw a shitload of money at it, but it doesn't work too well. Like you tend to get like a pretty myopic view of the thing, unless you're a government or something and you're throwing like Manhattan Project money and resources at it. But there are only so many of those. So a style of like
weapon of mass destruction.
What's that?
And then you end up with a weapon of mass destruction, which was a goal, but
nuclear energy out of it. So
true.
But yeah, like, so there's a necessity to sort of like trust the uncertainty together, which requires a collaborative sort of improv-y style that is, it has a buffer around it. Like and I think that the meta game here is that like for the types of people who are interested in playing with these kinds of ideas, keeping it interesting is one of the most important parts of it. Like, because we can go do anything we want, right? So the thing that pulls, that like coheres a group is the ability to like sniff into things together that you wouldn't be able to get into otherwise. So anyways, that's more on the game stuff, I guess. And then the hope is here that this model of interaction is like forkable enough that a lot of people could go goof around with this kind of thing. So
I think sure is the picture you painted where somebody coming in like proposing them like a crazy built out feature. Well, I mean, if that's the case and it doesn't gain the acceptance that they maybe wanted, then at that point it becomes a fork, and they are now like proposing the first direction change of that. And I could see those lines intersecting at some point again, but it's possible they don't. Like, I guess it sort of draws a line between people just working together to keep the thing like moving in a shared direction, and then like the people that are too far out of they by nature sort of have to take it in the different directions themselves if that's what they want.
Yeah. Well, what's beautiful about the Web3 stuff is that scale doesn't get in the way of something being able to be forked off. Like in Web2, the only way to build like something that's a mass consumer service is to like throw a bunch of money at it, build moats, lock people in, make it harder for them to leave. But with Web3, like it's really just about putting the users first and like designing systems that are putting their needs first, and anybody who's contributing to that system should have some incentive that, it's not all going back to one organization that's trying to lock people down to that.
Totally did not think about it that way, but it's like you can't, having a lot of users in some sense, instead of like giving you a moat, it actually like beckons other people to join and like interact and compete and just whatever. Like that's amazing. Holy shit.
It seems very naturally evolutionary. Like the more scale you get, the more evolution, or like the more randomness in the system and like more changes that begin to fork off. And it's like, okay, will that thing work or will it just die off? And will that thing fork or will it just die
off? It's all open all the way down. And there's just like mutations happening at every layer.
So then the premise on not controlling this, but sort of it becomes a containment thing. This is where design goes. Rather than manufacturing a plan and then executing on the plan, it's the style of design now is like, how do you create good environments for the evolution to happen, right? So you've got, this is the game structure. Like within these things, there are frictions that are fruitful to move the thing forward, or to like, oh, we need an economy. All right, so to like put some boundaries on the thing, and then like sort of, you know, incent people to come play in the thing, and then they incent other people, and then you can't predict what will come of that. You can only predict that there will be some instantiation that resembles something like a reaction to reality, which is not a solution. It's just a relationship to reality as it exists within that containment area, which is a fucking really weird way of designing, but makes it's just designing with evolution.
No big deal.
Simple.
No big deal.
This is why you have to like look at all the biological stuff, and then like this is where cybernetics is moving in this direction. All this stuff, it's interesting. I think there's a huge overlap with what we're talking about and like the cybernetics fields. I don't know what that overlap is, but I think we're probably just refinding it, but true.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff definitely feels a little more congruent with something I'm going to be plugging into my brain than like a black box, you know, software stack that I'm getting as a version 1.5.8 from this like company I've never seen inside of. Yeah, this
sticking Google in my head.
Yeah.
All right, so where are we at now?
Yeah, did we
lightweight game definition going?
So we're
Is there a deadline to submit the top 2 things?
Probably.
Yeah, post maybe Monday, like sort of steering towards our regular time, but letting that be our first sync, I guess, voting process. Unless we also want to try to do voting in Discord prior to that as well, sort of asynchronously. But there's kind of this question I have of like proposals versus discussions and where the two overlap. Like, because what if I'm like not totally clear on what you're proposing? You know, I could ask like some questions in Discord, but it's possible that once we're all engaged in the conversation, like the bandwidth on that just shoots up, and I could like really understand. So I can kind of see maybe like an early ooh, this is like piquing my curiosity, maybe some sort of dots, you know, kind of like on the Miro style, like, oh, here are the things that I really want to talk about. Just maybe as like early flags for leading the discussion, and then maybe at least early on having the discussions be made more sync voice.
Yeah, I think we can. So create a Discord channel for proposals, I guess is what we're thinking. And then by Monday, each person will throw out 2, have them be 2 separate boxes, and then let's let it emerge. Like what makes, I don't even know what I would want to react to these proposals with.
Yeah.
So same, like, let's just see what comes out, and people can do their own system, and then we can talk about how we voted. Voting is loose though. It's not really voting. It's how you reacted to the proposal. But I think my proposal right now is to use like emojis to have some reaction to the content that the proposals you're reading in the Discord.
Yep. So
Can we set like a bit of a, sorry.
Go ahead.
Can we set a bit of a buffer before the call to like try and get the posts in so we all have good time to like read?
So
yeah, I guess
Monday,
this is a question that I had. Is it like a proper post per like those 2 things, or a post of those 2 things, or is it just like a little tidbit in the Discord?
I think a tidbit. And if you have additional like collateral or whatever, like you want to link up to a post, or you did some sketches, like all of that, like you can throw it in there. But yeah, summarize in Discord, just like sort of a high level is how I'm seeing it.
And the overarching question is how to get to dog food fastest.
That's the goal state. And then the question is, what do you think is the most important? Like, what's the best way to do that now?
Yeah.
As you can play yourself. Role play as yourself.
I mean, we could do an alternate version of this. Is role play as
Pretend you're
CJ.
Shahruz.
Yeah. What do you think?
We all rotate and write for each other.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I guess I could do that. I think
Change
that's
your
like,
Discord password with the person to your right.
yeah, like
So yeah, probably post Sunday evening, giving everyone Monday to look at it.
12-hour buffer.
Okay.
And are we doing Monday call? Because I kind of know that I'm going to be out in the woods somewhere on Monday, most likely.
So
I'm. I mean, I could possibly make it happen while I'm like at a cliff.
What about Tuesday?
Yeah, I think better Tuesday.
Oh, Sunday.
July 4th weekend too.
Yeah.
July 4th is Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Does Tuesday work?
Yep.
Tuesday's fine.
Do Tuesday 2:30, 3:30 preference?
Either.
Okay.
That's great.
What else?
I don't know.
So instead of Sunday, I guess for the two things, you can push it to Monday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. More breathing room. Cool.
This continues to be weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess is this an on Monday or so many questions? So many like meta questions. Is this on Monday or is this anytime before Monday?
Anytime before. We're not black.
Okay. We're not blackboxing this, so it's just throwing it out there.
Yeah. I think it would be useful for just because I think a proposal could be forked off of another proposal. I think proposed to modify another proposal.
Great.
So yeah, I think more serendipity there is better.
All right. What else did we
Great.
talk?
I don't have anything else.
No, I don't think so.
I think that's plenty.
Yep.
Cool.
Always end up writing so many notes. I have like 3 pages.
Yeah, it's weird doing these things like in different environments.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
Randomly, I don't know where I am.
Yeah, like it helps. Like I'm not attached to anything anymore.
No.
Just come to this. I'm like staring at some map of Portland bike routes right now, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's at the very least, it's certainly enforcing the everybody is everywhere at different times, like base level constraint of sort of this very communication style. So yeah, I guess.
I mean, it's
looks
good.
like this.
If we start coordinating and it feels like the thing is working, and we're also all sort of distributed like this, I think that's a good sign that we're on to something.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of this call, I did not feel as centered or grounded or whatever. I still don't, but I feel that we are moving towards something, at least in something resembling a group. So that's what we can do. That's what we can do. It's good.
I agree.
Cool.
Always light.
All right. Well,
One thing kind of that like I just reminded is like, in Discord, this is like just a brain fart. In Discord, does it make sense like if you're available to chat to just be in one of the channels and be like, hey, I'm here and like available to chat. Like I'm kind of might be working on something in the relation of Buzzard or like down to talk about that just in general. Yeah, basically.
Very done.
I
Voice
like
channels are awesome for that too, because you can just hang out there and nothing's playing until somebody pops in.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I like that we're talking about this at all, rather than assuming that. Because so many of these things where like, none of it is like talked about. You're just supposed to be there all the time, or not.
Norms make everything grokkable.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's good. I mean,
Cool.
CJ,
I was
what,
just
is that what AFK is in this case?
I was just like AFK is just like, okay, I'm not gonna be on my computer, or like maybe I'm on my computer and I just am not interested in like talking or something. I think it was just a default that I'm used to, like for TeamSpeak or these old things that I used, is when we were playing video games, you just like drop, if you're like going to eat dinner or whatever, you drop yourself in AFK.
Cool.
But you know, we can kind of figure it out as we go. Because I was realizing like I might be in there. Sorry, Dave.
Computer.
Yeah, so
I'm picturing like a white noise mix.
yeah,
It's like
That's
a hack
good.
of just
no, I understand. So I'm trying to like, I get the behavior. It's a code, because on the internet you are only present if you are like active, right?
Yeah.
And so this is like it's the equivalent to a away message in instant messenger. Like I'm here,
Yeah.
but like I'm not here. And so
Yeah.
now people are doing the
Totally.
voice channels with like you just drop your avatar self in there effectively. Okay. Sure.
And I guess that could be expanded out to like working. And it's just like,
Yeah.
maybe unless like it's something urgent, like please don't grab me. Because I can imagine like I could just be like studying something and be like down to have a conversation, and then having a conversation, and then that spawns some new thoughts, and I'm like, okay, I need like some time to digest that and move myself out of the main thing. So it's like, okay.
So it'd be maybe more, we could make a room like called library or something. It's just like quiet. You got to go in there and like tap on somebody's shoulder to really get there.
Air horn.
I like that. Air horn. You're just yelling things out to everyone.
That's the default internet state. Yes, everybody has air horns running around on a giant field.
Effectively, this is what Slack used to. I mean, it's just loud.
Still is.
Meme one. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we're kind of coming from a. Well, I think I'll use it. I've got my co-present internet stuff baseline to nothing. I'm just never on anything anymore. Not even text messages. So it'll be interesting to build this back in and like sort of figure out a way that I actually want to be there. So this is fun.
It's like being intentional about it. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about this thing, and being like, okay, be in that thing.
Like, oh, I'm going to go to this place and there's going to be things there for me to go to. Cool. Yeah. Works for me. Anything else?
No, I just really like participatory cartography.
Yeah.
I like that too.
That was nice.
That's the
Also
Delta, where you have the like, everything is black and then you're walking through things and it fills in. That's participatory cartography.
Squad-based participatory cartography.
I mean,
also shared orientation over consensus. Really, it resonated with me too. I like that.
Consensus participatory cartography.
Sure.
Yeah. How many words can you shove in there?
Sure, there's a portmanteau somewhere in there. All right.
What was that? Sorry, I didn't catch that one.
Portmanteau participatory cartography.
Part cart.
Part cart.
What was the part cart? Oh, there was a portmanteau. It doesn't make any sense. It works. It's partography.
Partography.
There we go.
Yeah, none of these are good.
The name will emerge.
Yes.
Photography. Participatory photography. That's all we got.
That's all we got.
Already.
That's all anyone's got left.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Tuesday. Everybody enjoyed blowing things up and whatever happens now on the 4th of July. I don't know.
Yep. Sounds good. Sounds good.
Cool.
See y'all.
Take care, everyone.
Have a
Great.
weekend.
Peace. Happy weekend. Yeah.